Hi, kindergarten. It is Miss Jen, and I have a book for you today. It is called Who Wants Arthur? And the story was written by Amanda Graham, and the pictures were drawn by Donna, Gynell. And we see on the cover, maybe that's Arthur, because usually if there's a name on the title, usually that's the main character and they'll be on the front cover. So we see Arthur on the front cover, and it looks like he's standing on a big pile of stuff. Who wants Arthur? Well, we're going to try to find out who wants Arthur. So let's begin. Who Wants Arthur? This is the title page. And so we see Arthur, and we see an older lady, and we see some food. So we have to figure out who this is. Arthur was a very ordinary dog. He lived in Mrs. Humber's pet shop with many other animals, but Arthur was the only dog. All the other dogs had been sold because dogs were very popular. All the dogs, except Arthur. He was just an ordinary brown dog who dearly wanted a home with a pair of old slippers to chew. So, Mrs. Humber's pet shop. So that must be who we see on the title page. So that must be Arthur and Mrs. Humber. And there's Arthur with all of his other animals that are in her pet shop. On Monday morning, Mrs. Humber put some rabbits in the window. By the end of the day, the window was empty, except for Arthur. Nobody wanted an ordinary brown dog. Everybody wanted rabbits. So that night, when all was quiet, Arthur practiced being a rabbit. So there's Mrs. Humber's shop. And there's Arthur in the window with all the rabbits. He practiced eating carrots and poking out his front teeth and making his ears stand up straight. He practiced very hard until he was sure he could be a rabbit. So there he is, eating all of his carrots. The next morning, Mrs. Humber put some snakes in the window. Well, by the end of the day, the window was empty, except for Arthur. Nobody wanted an ordinary brown dog, not even one who acted like a rabbit. Everybody wanted snakes. So that night, when all was quiet, Arthur practiced being a snake. So there's Arthur. I don't know what he's doing. He's getting in that bucket of carrots. And there's bags of snakes. And Mrs. Humber actually has something in her hair. He practiced hissing, slithering, and sliding and looking cool. He practiced very hard until he was sure he could be a snake. So there he is, practicing his snakiness. I don't know if the birds are buying it. The next morning, Mrs. Humber put some fish in the window. By the end of the day, the window was empty, except for Arthur. Nobody wanted an ordinary brown dog, not even one who acted like a rabbit and a snake. Everybody wanted a fish. So that night, when all was quiet, Arthur practiced being a fish. So there he is. Like, maybe you won't notice that I'm not a fish. Yes, it's kind of the same color. He practiced swimming and blowing bubbles and breathing underwater. He practiced very hard until he was sure he could be a fish. So there's a lot going on in this picture. But we see him putting his face in the fish bowl, trying to breathe. The next morning, Mrs. Humber put some cats in the window. By the end of the day, the window was empty. Except for Arthur. Nobody wanted an ordinary brown dog, not even one who acted like a rabbit and a snake and a fish. Everybody wanted cats. Arthur felt he would never find a home with a pair of old slippers to chew. So there he is, doing his best cat. The next morning, Mrs. Humber put the rest of her pets in the window. There were 2 hamsters, a cage of mice, 3 canaries, a blue parakeet, a green frog, 1 sleepy lizard, and Arthur. So there they all are. Arthur jumped on lily pads, squeaked, and nibbled cheese. He purred, he croaked, and he even tried to fly. By the end of the day, the window was empty, except for Arthur. Oh, he's trying his hardest. He just wants some slippers to chew and a family. He had collapsed, exhausted, in the corner of the window. Now he was certain he would never find a home, whether he was a rabbit, snake, fish, a cat, or a purple-spotted 3-headed donkey. Arthur decided that he might as well be just an ordinary brown dog. Oh, he gave up. Late that afternoon, as Mrs. Humber was closing up shop, a man came in with his granddaughter. "Excuse me," he said. "Melanie tells me that you have a rather extraordinary dog who performs all sorts of tricks." "Well, the only dog I have," replied Mrs. Humber, "is Arthur." So there they are. I'm surprised Arthur's not around. "There he is, Grandpa, in the window!" cried Melanie. She rushed to pick up Arthur, who gave her the biggest, wettest, doggiest lick ever. At last, Arthur knew he had found a home. Oh boy, and do they look happy. Oh my goodness, look at them. Look at their faces. You can tell they're happy. How can you tell they're happy? They're smiling, huh? And he had found a home with a pair of old slippers to chew. And there he is. And there are the chewed up slippers. The end. So that was Who Wants Arthur? He ended up being an amazing dog, not ordinary at all. If he could figure all that stuff out and try to be all those different animals, he was definitely not just an ordinary brown dog. And he finally got his wish of being home with a family and slippers to chew. So I hope you like this book, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!